You look at me sitting in this cheap $30 a night motel room and you probably see a broken, washed-up old man. You see the gray stubble, the tired eyes, the cheap hoodie. You see a ghost. But 7 years ago, I wasn't a ghost. I was a god. My name is Declan. For 22 years, I wore the silver shield of a sergeant in the 14th District of the Metropolitan Police Department. I had a beautiful wife named Clara, a teenage daughter named Faye, a house in the suburbs with a 2-car garage, and a pension waiting for me. I had authority, I had power, and I abused every single ounce of it. I'm recording this for Marcus's archive because the public needs to hear the truth from the inside. When you wear a badge for 2 decades, surrounded by other guys with badges, you start to believe that you are the absolute law. And if you have prejudice in your heart, like I did, that badge becomes a weapon. They don't tell you this in the academy, but anti-black racism in policing isn't always a conscious decision to be evil. Sometimes it's an insidious, quiet rot. It's the way you grip your steering wheel a little tighter when you drive into certain neighborhoods. It's the way your hand instinctively rests on your holster when you approach a black driver, a reflex you never have when pulling over a white teenager in the suburbs. I let that rot consume me. I convinced myself I was street smart. In reality, I was just a racist with a gun. And that racism cost the city $4 million, cost me my freedom, and nearly destroyed the life of an innocent young man named Jamal. It was the night of October 14th, 2017. It was a cold, rainy Saturday. I was on patrol with a rookie, a 23-year-old kid named Beckett. Beckett was fresh out of the academy, eager to please, and terrified of me. At exactly 11:45 p.m., we were cruising down West 4th Street when I saw a silver Toyota Camry roll through a yellow light. It wasn't a crime. It wasn't even a ticketable offense. But I looked at the driver, a young black man in a hoodie. My biased, poisoned mind immediately decided he was up to no good. I hit the sirens. The driver pulled over immediately under a streetlight. I walked up to the window, shining my mag light directly into his eyes. His name was Jamal. He was 26 years old. He was a respiratory therapist at Memorial Hospital, just getting off a 14-hour shift, exhausted and trying to get home to his fiancée. I demanded his license and registration. Jamal was compliant, but he was tired, and he asked me, respectfully, why he had been pulled over. That was all it took. That simple, constitutional question bruised my massive, fragile ego. How dare this young black man question my authority? I didn't see a citizen asking a valid question. I saw a challenge to my dominance. I ordered Jamal out of the car. He hesitated for a split second, confused. So I ripped the door open, grabbed him by the collar of his scrubs, and threw him onto the wet asphalt. Beckett, my rookie partner, jumped out of the cruiser yelling, "Sarge, what's going on?" But I was seeing red. I drove my knee into Jamal's back, pressing his face into the gravel. Jamal was screaming, "I'm not resisting. I'm a hospital worker. Please." I didn't care. I slapped the cuffs on him so tight they cut into his wrists. I yanked him up by his arms, dislocating his left shoulder in the process, and shoved him into the back of the cruiser. But here is where the real crime happened. Here is where the badge becomes a shield for the devil. When we got back to the precinct, I had to justify the arrest. So I lied. I sat down at my computer at 2 a.m. and I wrote a completely fabricated police report. I wrote that Jamal was driving erratically. I wrote that when I approached the vehicle, he smelled of marijuana. I wrote that he became physically combative, struck me in the chest, and attempted to reach for my service weapon. I charged Jamal with aggravated assault on a peace officer and resisting arrest, felony charges. Charges that carry a mandatory minimum of 5 years in a state penitentiary. I was perfectly willing to lock an innocent black man in a cage for half a decade just to cover up my own racist loss of temper. And I forced my rookie Beckett to sign his name at the bottom of that false report. I told him, This is how the Brotherhood works. We protect our own. For 3 months, Jamal's life was a living hell. He lost his job at the hospital. He lost his apartment. He was facing 5 to 10 years in prison. But I underestimated Jamal's defense attorney, a brilliant, relentless man named Devin. Devin didn't just take my police report at face value. Devin subpoenaed the security camera footage from a hardware store located directly across the street from where the traffic stop happened. On January 12, 2018, I was called into the captain's office. Internal Affairs was there. They turned a laptop around and played the video. It was a crystal clear, high-definition shot of the entire encounter. It showed Jamal complying. It showed him with his hands up. It showed me violently dragging an innocent man out of his car and assaulting him. It proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that every single word on my sworn police report was a complete, malicious lie. The blue wall of silence crumbled instantly. Beckett, terrified of going to jail, flipped and took a plea deal, testifying that I coerced him into lying. The fallout was catastrophic. The city, desperate to avoid a massive civil rights trial, settled with Jamal for $4 million. $4 million of taxpayer money, gone. Because I couldn't treat a black man with basic human dignity. But the city's check didn't save me. On August 3, 2018, I stood in a courtroom and watched a judge sentence me to 4 years in the state penitentiary for deprivation of civil rights under color of law and perjury. Before I was even transferred to the prison, my wife Clara came to the county jail. She looked at me through the plexiglass, her eyes cold and empty. She told me she was filing for divorce. She told me that our daughter Faye had changed her last name and was moving out of state. Clara said, "You aren't the man I married. You're a monster who hides behind a piece of metal." That was the last time I ever saw my family. Prison changes a man, especially an ex-cop. They put me in protective custody, locked in an 8x10 concrete cell for 23 hours a day to keep the general population from killing me. For 4 years I sat in that cage. I lost my mind in the silence. The irony was suffocating. I had spent my entire career putting black men in cages, stripping them of their humanity, treating them like animals. And now, I was the animal. I learned what it feels like to be completely powerless, to be stripped of your dignity, to be viewed as nothing but a number. I got out 6 months ago. I lost my pension. I lost my house. I live in this motel room, working under the table as a night watchman at a junkyard, looking over my shoulder every single day. I am completely alone, and the hardest truth I have had to swallow, the truth that stares back at me in the cracked mirror of this motel bathroom, is that I absolutely deserve this. To Jamal, I know a $4 million settlement doesn't erase the trauma I caused you. It doesn't fix the shoulder I broke, and it doesn't erase the terror you felt on that wet asphalt. I am a disgraced, broken man, and I am so profoundly sorry for what my racism put you through. And to every police officer watching this, look in the mirror. Check your heart. If you look at a black citizen and see a threat instead of a human being to protect and serve, take off the badge. Turn it in, because the rod of prejudice will eventually catch up to you. And when it does, the Brotherhood won't save you. You will lose your family, you will lose your freedom, and you will end up exactly like me, a ghost, trapped in a cheap room, haunted by the lives you ruined.